And without further ado then, we'll have a beautiful conversation with two students oo soo qaateen ama fasal af Soomaaliya soo dhigteen ama Somali ethnic studies soo dhigteen ama arday I think gabar waxaa kamid ah iskoolkeeda ayaa hadda af Soomaali laga bilaabi doonaa marka waan wareysan doonaa insha Allah biidnillah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Iqra Mahmoud. I am going to be a freshman in college at Minnesota State University, Mankato.
Magacayga waa Sundus Cabdi and sanadka dambe waxaan noqonayaa sagaalaad at Eden Prairie High School.
What are some challenges or barriers you experienced in your schooling in regards to your heritage culture, heritage language? What kind of supports did you have? What kind of supports did you not have? What did you wish you had as a student?
Some of the challenges I faced when I was younger was, I was new here, so I started at second grade. And I didn't understand a lot of the students, so mainly I spoke Somali and I didn't know any English. And I never took any other classes that would teach me English, but I learned from my students and my teachers. But I've had a hard time making friends when I was younger, but as I got older, I started to learn more and be more social.
For me, I'd say one of the biggest challenges would be not having enough teachers understand that there's going to be a huge disconnect and also barrier, because a lot of us are, like you said, dual identity. A lot of us were born in America but also have Somali culture, and a lot of the teachers didn't seem to understand that. We as students, especially children, were struggling with that. Not a lot of us understood American culture, nor did we understand our Somali culture either. We were told at school to really just English only, and I went to a majority Somali school, but even though all of us were Somali, we weren't really allowed to talk in our language, and we're often sent to the office if we were to talk in it. And then when you're at home, our parents talked to us in Somali, but they didn't necessarily expect us to talk back in Somali because we were so focused on assimilating into American culture where we tend to forget our own culture. So a lot of us have, a small understanding of our culture, but because we're so busy trying to fit into American culture, we often have to disregard one of it so we can better assimilate into it.
Can you describe the Somali language or culture course that you took? If you didn't take a course, would you have taken a course if the opportunity was available to you?
I took a Somali ethnic studies course in my 11th grade year. And honestly, to me, it was probably one of my favorite classes of high school of all time. I think that class we sat down and we talked a lot about just Somali culture in itself. We learned about poetry, we learned about colonization, we learned about the different dances, the different regions, we learned about pan-Somalism, we learned about pretty much anything about Somali, and that kind of showed a lot of us our culture in a different lens than where we're used to. A lot of the times, you don't really have our parents to talk to about our culture because, like I said, we're so focused on assimilating into American culture. You know what I mean? And oftentimes my parents are so busy putting a roof over our head, giving us food to eat, that there's no really time for them to sit down and talk to us about our culture. So definitely taking that course, I think, helped me and a lot of my classmates understand the beauty of our culture and understand that it's a culture not to be ashamed of, but rather to be proud of. And that also taught us that we can still be American, but at the same time be Somali, and that we can juggle between the two without having to compromise one culture over the other.
I never took any Somali courses or any languages, but if I could, I would have, so I could engage with more Somali students and understand what was going around my school. But but as I grew up, I've learned to be more social, and I love the way that our school works and everything, but I love that we are now working together to make a school courses and languages.
Did taking a Somali language class, I know you didn't take it, but for those of you that took a Somali language or an ethnic studies class, did that help you better communicate with your parents and understand your culture? If so, how? Can you share some examples with us?
It definitely did help me gain a deeper level of connection with my parents. Not saying that we weren't close before, but I think now when you learned something in Somali class and you brought it back home and you told your parents, "Hey, Hoya, Abba, I learned this in Somali class," they'd be so proud of you, and they'd be so proud of you. And you can literally see the look in their eyes and just pure and genuine just happiness that you're finally engaged and finally want to learn about your culture. And you would sit down and you have hours of conversation about it, and they'll even give you a deeper understanding than that you weren't received in class. And I think definitely connected us even to a deeper level, and I understand that many of my classmates can relate to that too.
And what suggestions or advice will you give school leadership to incorporate Somali heritage, language, and culture in MPS schools? Like, what suggestions would you give? Because, you know, you've got some powerful people in this room today, so.
I definitely would say fund it as much as you can. I think this is a course or classes that are going to be such fundamental to the growth of the new generation. I definitely think it would open doors and help kids who are now struggling with their identity to like have a better understanding of it and won't feel so left out or feel like they would have to compromise one culture or the other to fit in. So yeah, I definitely say give it as much funding as you possibly can.
I agree with Iqra, but I would say be more involved and supportive as you can, and also fund it more. And yeah, thank you.
What suggestions or advice will you give students who have the opportunity to take a Somali heritage language class or or an ethnic studies course?
I'd say take as much advantage as you can from the classes. When I started taking the class 11th grade year, I felt like it was a class that was, in a sense, useless. I didn't feel like the need to take the class. I was like, there's no point, I'm Somali, I think that's more than enough. But I think after taking that class, you learn so much about the culture. And like I said, you'll gain like a deeper connection with your parents, because your parents are going to be so proud of you for finally like taking the chance to sit down with them and learn more about your culture. And I think it would create so much conversations, and also you can even like talk to your relatives back home. And I know many of us have like missed that opportunity simply because we couldn't speak the language, nor could we understand the culture that they were raised in. So I'd say definitely take as much advantage as you can of it. Try to learn as much as you can from it.
The advice I would give would be to learn the things that you wanted to learn, but not regret it when you get older and say, oh, I wish I did this and I did that. But yeah, take as much advantage as you can of it.
We thank you very much. And on a personal note, I just want to have a quick thing that I want to say to waalidiinteena Soomaalida. Waxaan idinku mahadcelinayaa in maashadaad noo imaateen. Waxaan idinka mahadcelinayaa caruurta aad noo keenteen si ay u arkaan muhiimadda ay leedahay luqadooda hooyo iyo dhaqankooda hooyo. Waxaan idinku dhiirigelinayaa habeen kasto mise maalintii mar inaad sheeko af Soomaali ku qoran caruurtiina aad u akrisiin. Haddaa sheekooyin weysiin qaada sheekooyin ku qoran af Ingiriiska idinka maskaxdiina ka tarjuma. Haddaa xataa Ingiriisku idinku adag yahay sawirada fiiriya sawirada idin sheegay waxay sheekada ku saabsan tahay. Literacy is key to keeping our kids successful academically. And thank you all very, very much.
Minneapolis Public Schools believes students succeed when they feel seen and heard. At MPS, we embrace inclusive education. We understand that everyone has unique needs, and our teachers and staff support students to become their best selves. At MPS, we are your supportive community. Access to lifelong, affordable, community-based education is at the core of who we are. At MPS, we value lifelong learning. Your voice matters, and we hear you. Together, we are a community of change makers building the runway for the future now. We are MPS Now.